What is up, everybody? Episode number 42 coming at you right now. Big Five Pod. I'm, of course, your co-host, Kyle Morello. And next to me here, Jay Copestick, co-host. How we doing?
Yeah, we're doing well. Weather's nice. News is starting to get fewer and far between. We're slowly reaching them dog days. We're only about a month away from May. So stuff's starting to die down here. But regardless, a lot of these teams, Temple especially, LaSalle, like they still got a lot of spots to fill. So we're not nearly done yet. But we're certainly getting there. But we still have plenty to talk about for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty to talk about. Um, yeah, I mean, listen, next one today, up 3-1 now. Was also thinking about this. Last week when we recorded this on Sunday night, there was after game one. Game one was played on Saturday. So today was game four. It's taken a week to get in 3 games. They take off like 3 days in between for these NBA series. It's kind of nuts. I don't really understand it. Hockey,
I thought they did. They take a day off and then they get an extra day for a travel day.
well, they took off. I think they took off 3 days for between game three and four. No, no, I'm sorry. It was only 2 days because game three was
Yes, I
on
think you're capping.
Friday. Yeah,
I think
I'm
you're capping.
capping on that. But the extra day for travel, yeah, I get it. But also, like, I think there's definitely been instances where there's not a travel day, but still an extra day, and it's like, what are we doing? Um, but yeah, a couple Villanova guys, obviously, Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson showing out today.
Can't go wrong,
Uh,
right?
can't go wrong with Nova
Can't go
guys.
wrong
Tibbs is
with them.
understanding. Tibbs is understanding.
Yeah.
Sixers sweeping the Nets too. Congratulations on that. Um, unfortunately, another Villanova guy, Mikal Bridges, not being able to. It's not his fault.
Yeah.
Not his.
Well, he
He,
should have been on the team that beat him.
yeah, he also should have been on this one too, but it's fine. Um, but anyway, speaking of the Wildcats, they have an important transfer coming in. As we talked about, this will now be the third consecutive episode that we mentioned Hakim Hart, but it's official that he is going home. He's going to Villanova, committed there on Friday as expected. And Cope, as we literally just talked about right before we started recording here, but we talked a lot about him already. I don't think there's really much else we need to break down about him, his game. We've obviously talked about the potential decision to go to Villanova. But any kind of final thoughts on him officially making his decision now?
So I mean, it's a huge get for them. He fits exactly what they want to do. He gives them a big versatile wing that gives him size to play positionless on the perimeter, like we talked about. He can shoot, he can defend a little bit, he can do a little bit of everything for them. And especially have a 5th-year guy who's from Philly come in, it's going to help them immensely. So huge get for Villanova. After 1 year of Kyle Neptune, where they brought in some freshmen, they were playing a lot. He's hitting the transfer portal hard, and it doesn't. And they're still reaching out there, guys. They might not be done yet. So good get for Villanova getting a Hakim Hart, and in totality, very good for them. They're hitting the fourth.
Listen, talking about fifth-year guys from Villanova. There's two that are coming back now officially. Eric DIXON, Chris Arcidiacono coming back for their fifth seasons. Obviously, Eric DIXON, huge for this Villanova team. We talked about him being the small ball center. 15 points, 6 rebounds last year. Started every game over the last 2 seasons. Chris Arcidiacono, not as much of a factor, only less than 3 points a game, though he did shoot 38% from three, but obviously not on a ton of attempts. This will be his fifth season too. Obviously Villanova loves the Arcidiacono bloodline. Ryan helping them win a championship too, but it's good to have the veteran presence in there. Definitely important, and especially for Eric DIXON too. I mean, he is a key cog and will help them return to Big East prominence this year. Obviously, you've got some of the transfers coming in. Justin Moore's coming back. So all of a sudden, this team that was a little younger last year, even though they had a couple people leave, are now starting to look like an experienced older group. How do you feel about these two coming back for year number 5?
So here's the thing. I think Eric DIXON will come back. The early entry for the NBA draft, the deadline is tonight. So unless something happens in the next T-2 hours, maybe there could be something different. But as far as we know, he's going to come back for another year. So he actually has 2 more years left because not only does he have a COVID year, but he redshirted in the 2019 to 2020. He could be a 6-year guy on Villanova's campus, probably graduate with maybe even up to 3 degrees for that long.
That'd be
But
awesome.
it's absolutely huge to get a guy like Eric DIXON back because they're still working the portal right now. We're going to talk about a guy they've reached out to. They now have an actual visit scheduled with Hunter Dickinson if there was any confusion about the one that might have happened last week, maybe that didn't happen, but they need him, because if they don't have him, well, they don't have any center, and then they're desperate for anybody. So for him to be a guy who's only 6'8", plays way bigger than his size, can rebound effectively, can defend with his chest effectively, keep guys in front of him. But and they went to a Final Four with him. Like he does so much for this team offensively. I mean, he can score down in the post. He's very patient with his shot fakes and his pivots and his movement. He can shoot the three. You saw the Creighton game where he was lights out. He can score for them. He's very, very smart passing the ball down there and knowing where doubles are coming from. So to get a guy like him back is huge. And hey, you could have next year and the year after if he chooses to play. So maybe 2 more years for Eric Dixon. And then for Chris Arcidiacono, he's a 5th year. I mean, I guess you can kind of hang, your hat on that. But this is a dude. Obviously, we all know about how great of a player his brother was. His parents are Villanova people, so for a guy like him to have the opportunity to come back for a 5th year, he's going to do it. He's going to come back. It gives him an experienced ball handler, a guy who can at least shoot standstill threes well. Plays the Villanova way. He'll get on the floor. He'll do all that dirty work, defend with his chest, keep guys in front of him best as he can on the perimeter. And a guy who knows, the program inside and out, and is somebody that the coaching staff can trust. That's why he started a lot of games early in the season, and they waited to bring Mark Armstrong along. Obviously, for a younger guy, it's going to take time, especially nobody get in there. But a guy like Chris Arcidiacono, he's a 4-year player now going into his 5th year. But on a team that needed to play a lot of freshmen last year, it was a familiar face for the coaching staff and a guy that they could trust in there. And he'll be coming back. So nice to see after last year where there was a pretty young team, I think by Villanova standards, you have 2 older guys coming back that were a part of that Final Four team, not this past season, but the season before. So a lot to be excited about with these guys coming back, especially Eric Dixon. And, they're going to be a better team than they were last year, especially when you have a healthy Justin Moore. And for these guys to come back with their experience is huge for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the one thing too, I know you mentioned Chris Arcidiacono started a lot of games early on in the season because, Justin Moore was hurt. They wanted to bring Mark Armstrong along slowly. They're not going to have to rely on him to do that this year because, you have Justin Moore coming back fully healthy. You have TJ Bamba. Now you have Hakim Hart too. They have depth now. And obviously Mark Armstrong entering his sophomore year. They have a lot of depth now. Maybe they'll use him very sparingly, but definitely not someone that they're going to rely on. And then obviously Eric Dixon, like we mentioned, is, a star for them. So great thing that they're having this leadership comeback. Assuming Eric Dixon does not decide in the next 2 hours of us recording this to go to the NBA. But yeah, it's exciting times for Villanova. We've been talking about them a lot the last couple episodes. So I'm sure we're not done yet. So we'll see what happens there. But to another school now, the Quakers. We haven't talked much about them this offseason yet. But one of their owners transferring out, Max LORCA-LLOYD, transferring to UMBC. Obviously, UMBC just losing Matteo Piccarelli going to Temple. So Max LORCA-LLOYD going to UMBC. Only played in 6 games this past year, rather. He was injured. I'm sorry, the year before he was injured. 2 points, 3 rebounds, 1 block per game, appeared in 28 games last season. So he wasn't like a crazy contributor. Definitely did go off the bench for them though. And was a part of that team. But he's transferring down. UMBC, in that conference, it's not one of the better ones in the country. But he should get some playing time. He should get some reps and finish out his college career getting some PT. So I guess it's not a bad move. But I guess Cope, does it mean a ton for Penn that he's leaving? Or do you think this is definitely something that they can withstand his departure?
Well, unfortunately for them, it's something that they have to, because obviously you can't play 5 years in the Ivy League. So once his eligibility for undergrad is run out, you gotta skip towns if you have a COVID year and you wanna play. So something I've talked about before, like they do have a guy like Chris Ubochi who didn't really play last year. I don't know if that was academic related or what that was, but that's a guy who was a freshman last year who maybe could step in and take these minutes. They seemed like they had a young guy as his replacement already there. And the thing is, the Ivy Leagues aren't really active in the transfer portal, obviously with the academic requirements and everything. But for the most part, if you're at an Ivy League school for like a vast majority, these guys just stay. Like it's not really a frenzy with the portal as far as the Ivy League goes. There's only a handful of schools, most of the Ivy Leagues, and then Duke hasn't had anybody transfer out this year. UCLA, I think, was the other one. There wasn't many. There's only a handful of schools. I think it's Duke and UCLA, and then a couple of Ivy League. If you if you take out the Ivy League schools that are losing guys because they have a COVID year and they can't do it in the conference, like these guys don't lose many guys. But um, yeah, he's going to transfer out. He came off the bench. He was a defensive guy, gave him a change of pace center, good lob threat around the rim. Wade plays a lot different than Nick Spinoso, who is, of course, a good passer out of the post and on the elbow if he's got to catch the ball, and definitely more of an offensive guy who's got a more sound post game, more of an and just a better offensive player all around. So, him being a lob threat, a guy who, although not a 7-footer, has the length, the athleticism to block some shots. He's going to go down to the America East, competed by Vermont last handful of years. But look, you just want the best for him, even though he's transferring down. Hopefully that means he can play a lot more. Because Penn, Nick Spinoso was one of the most, he was Big Five most improved players this year. He showed why, and he very early in the season he kind of took that spot away from him. So hopefully he can get some playing time down there. But unfortunately, on a team like Penn that had some depth and I thought had some really good chemistry down the stretch this year, just not allowed to play that 5th year, or at least exhaust more eligibility in the Ivy League. We wish him all the best. Hope we can get a lot more playing time down there.
Yeah, absolutely. Wish him all the best. Thank you for your contributions to Penn basketball. We very much appreciate it, and I think he's gonna have some success down there at UMBC. So we'll definitely see what happens. All right, we're gonna move on here to Zach Hicks, and we talked about Zach Hicks transferring last episode, but there's another update that I think we both found pretty interesting that we're gonna go over right now. So this was on Thursday after we recorded, so we weren't able to go over this, but Zach Hicks' dad, Jeffrey Hicks, was weighing in, and he said on Twitter, he was replying to Javon Edmonds and Stan the Runner on Twitter at Stan the Runner. So he said, and I'm quoting here, didn't have anything to do with Coach Fisher. He did a great job and had everything to do with the ongoing crime around campus. Zach wanted peace and quiet so he can focus on his goals. First of all, wow. That's saying something really, really bad. I know, when Adam Fisher got hired on that same episode, we talked about Jason Wingard's departure from Temple as the president and some of the reasons for that, and crime was definitely one of them. Obviously, it's a city of Philadelphia issue, not just a Temple issue, but that is probably one of the more things like this happen, like crime happens rather. And both of us being alumni from there, I think we know what goes on in the area, unfortunately. But the fact that it's impacting recruiting from a player who was already there is mind-boggling. And I don't think either of us really have like a solution in mind to things of this nature. It's way, way, way above our pay grades. But can you also speak on like kind of just the fact that Hicks's dad came out and said this, and it being an indictment on the university as a whole, because obviously this has been a problem with Temple for a while, is the crime in the area. It's a phenomenal school. We're both products of the school. It's a really great school. A lot of people that we know and we know and love are also alumni of that school. But the fact that it's affecting recruiting and keeping guys there, and maybe even bringing guys in too, is insane.
Yeah. I mean, it's for basketball, it sucks, but now you're seeing like this is bound, just farther. The impact of the crime around campus is bound just farther than undergrad students. Like think about that. If you're a guy like Zach Hicks, you're from Camden, you're not from far from the area. You probably get a free ride or close to that to go to a really good school, close to home, a school with a rich basketball history. Like you're getting so many amenities if you're him. That's different from the experience that me and you had. And you still don't want to go there. Like that's how bad this is now. And of course, the enrollment's declining. I've heard stories on the news about kids on individual blocks, like their parents are hiring private security. Like the situation around campus is very, very bad. And to me, it kind of culminates in a situation like this where you have an athlete that, like I said, like think of all the perks that he gets that a normal student wouldn't get, and you would think that it's stuff like that that would entice him to want to stay and not want to make a move like this and go to Penn State. But I think that there's a chance that his Zach Hicks' father kind of said what we're all thinking. I mean, as much as we love the school, there's no doubt that it's a great school with great people there. It's that, and you can't change that. You can't pick Temple up and move it somewhere else. It's a problem, but it's also completely out of the control of the basketball program and all the athletic programs for that measure. And for the most part, it's kind of out of the control of I don't really know of course I'm not going to act like I have a solution here, but like it's a bigger problem than just what's going on at Temple's campus. Like I'm not really there's of course that the administration like has things they can do at least in their jurisdiction, whether that's hiring more security. It's one of the brightest spots on campus. Like they have street lights everywhere and stuff like that. But this is a bigger problem than just what's happening on Broad and Montgomery, Broad and Diamond, whatever it is. Like this is a citywide problem.
Yeah.
So now you're seeing, and obviously, like we have a bunch of schools in the city, and if people are going to be hesitant, like you don't know what could happen to these universities as a whole. Like, are they going to have to cut back on staff? Are they going to have to raise the price of tuition? And even that, if that's the case, like people seem reluctant to even send their kids here anyway. So it's a shame that this is going to affect the basketball program, which in the grand scheme of things is very small in terms of a whole university. But this is a way, way bigger problem, like we've talked about. And it's not just at Temple. It's not just at LaSalle or maybe St. Joe's, even though it's on the main line in a better area, or at Drexel or at Penn. Like this is a full citywide problem. The Northeast, South Philly, this is a whole citywide problem. I don't have the answers, but it's just a shame that like this is now affecting everybody on every single level, even with the scholarship, even with all these other perks. I'm sure his parents probably get tickets to games and stuff like that. Maybe he even has really nice university housing. I don't know, but he's got all these perks and he still doesn't want, and he's close to home, and he'd still rather go 3 hours up the road. It's unfortunate, but it's completely out of the control of Adam Fisher and these guys. I mean, all they can do is kind of throw their hands up. There's nothing that they can do.
No, there's nothing they can do, and that's the frustrating part, unfortunate part about it, is because like all they want to do is just try to recruit their players. Obviously, keep Zach Hicks here, and he just can't because the crime in the city of Philadelphia is that bad that it's freaking out someone who's not far. Like he's literally just across the bridge in Camden. So obviously they know about Philly. Like him being a student for the last few years, obviously too, like they know the area, and it's gotten so bad probably since 2021 that he's leaving. He's going to Penn State. And listen, Penn State, Big Ten school, I get it. They had a good run last year. New head coach who's had success at his former program. Like there's a lot of attractive things about Penn State. I'm not trying to say that it was a poor choice. Like if he went to UTEP over Temple, I'd be a lot more upset. Even though I'm not trying to disrespect UTEP, but it's not a Big Ten program. You know what I mean? Like it's completely different. But like it's just insane. I don't really know what other words to describe it right now, but it's something that the city has to get under control. And it doesn't, like you said, just doesn't involve Temple. It involves all the schools, all 6 schools. It's except for maybe St. Joe's and Villanova.
Well, it doesn't affect
It doesn't
at all. I mean,
no,
they're in an absolutely gorgeous area.
no,
So
they're in a great area, and St. Joe's on the main line, so it's not like in like where Temple, LaSalle, Drexel, Penn is, but like it's they don't probably deal with it as much, but at least for the other 4 schools, I mean, it's bad. It's something that they get under control, and like I said, far outside of either of our pay grades. But the fact that it's trickling down all the way to recruits for basketball is kind of insane. So
yeah,
yeah.
I
All right.
don't know of another program where like this is a problem.
No, I don't. I
If
mean,
anybody knows of one, I'd be happy to. If you have one for me, but I'd love to know where this is a problem, where it affects stuff like this, and where like enrollment is declining. Because
I
you
mean,
think
I
about
don't.
some of the biggest cities like Loyola Chicago's pretty sure is right on the lake.
Yeah,
Our
it's in
school,
Chicago.
same thing with Northwestern. You look at LA, like USC is pretty much in downtown. UCLA is in Westwood. Like I'm just trying to think of like big cities here, like University of Washington. I know it's
I
in
mean, like
Seattle. That's right on the water.
Detroit Mercy's a small school. I don't know exactly where in Detroit it is, but like I know obviously Detroit talk about
I
crime there too.
I don't
But
I don't know where this is a problem anywhere else
yeah,
for any other school.
no,
So that's where they even have more at their disadvantage. Like this is a problem that I'm sure that there's a. I mean, we know that in this country we have a violence problem
yeah.
and we have a crime and a gun problem, but I don't know where like there's like at a university. Like as far as I know, at least like this is a problem that's unique to Temple,
Yes,
which is a shame because I don't think anybody else has to deal with this.
no. I mean, literally the only other one I can think of is LaSalle because it's in a similar area.
Yeah, and that
Like even
makes
though
it
it's
even worse.
yeah,
That's more It's even bigger indictment on
yeah,
Philadelphia right now. And I don't even mean to smile or laugh because it's
no,
not a
but
laugh
like
matter.
it's just ridiculous. Like it's insane. I mean, like LaSalle's enrollment's down too. It's been down even since when you were a student there, your freshman year. Like
Yeah.
it's just it's a huge problem,
They
and they
were
have to
like
figure it
talking
out.
about going under during COVID.
I know,
We almost got to that point.
I know, it's
So
insane. Speaking of both LaSalle and Temple, there's a few Philly schools actually going after this recruit. Florida State's Naheem McLeod, and the transfer portal, obviously, but drawing interest from Villanova, Temple, LaSalle, and Drexel. So we got 4 out of the 6 here. Um, huge individual. 7'4", played at PW, Plymouth Whitemarsh, kind of local to us here. Appeared in 28 out of 32 games for Florida State this year, averaged around 4 points a game, close to 3 rebounds a game, and a block a game. Um, this will be a huge get for all of these schools, honestly. I mean, this kind of size doesn't come around too often, especially having a local kid, be wanting to come back, it appears. So that would be huge for them. He did take a visit to LaSalle. Um, LaSalle was in his final 3 when he was coming out of high school with Rhode Island and Florida State. He chose Florida State, obviously. And LaSalle assistant Donnie Carr helped recruit him, which shout out to at LaSalle B-Ball1 on Twitter for pointing that out to us. Very much appreciate that fun fact. But listen, this is a guy, I mean, that's game-changing size. I'm not saying everybody with that size knows how to use it. Obviously he wasn't like a ginormous contributor to Florida State, and Florida State wasn't good this year. But potentially either transferring down to LaSalle, Temple, or Drexel, or even transferring up to come off the bench at Villanova would be pretty huge, especially considering that, in Villanova's case, they have Eric DIXON, who's a small ball center, and then they could potentially transition to someone who's just ginormous and give them a completely different look. Um, Very interesting recruit here that we got in the transfer portal. So which one of these 4 schools do you think you'd be the best fit at, or even the most likely to go to?
best fit for me, I think, is Temple or LaSalle. The thing is, we've seen Villanova play small with Eric DIXON, so this is kind of a luxury almost. Like I think Villanova, regardless, they need a big. They need but they've also shown the ability with DIXON to still be competitive and still be successful. Drexel's already got Amari Williams, and they have a dude who's can go up a double pretty much every night. Big time shot blocker, really good defensive player too. So he would have to play behind Amari Williams. But at Temple and LaSalle, that's where your biggest needs are right now. As far as I know, Temple's got Emmanuel Akpoma. That's it. Jamil Reynolds gone. Cordon Cooch out of eligibility. Nick Jourdain out. Like these guys are all gone. So they're out of bigs with the exception of Emmanuel Akpoma, who played sparingly at best in the year before. So there's a huge need at Temple, quite literally a huge need for Naeem McLeod because they need size in there right now. I don't imagine they want to go into the season with Emmanuel Akpomo as their starting center. We talked about the Adam Fisher style, wanting to shoot threes. No, look, Naeem McLeod's not a guy that shot threes, but neither is Emmanuel Akpomo. So they need bigs and they need size for sure. And then LaSalle could use a backup as well to Rokas Yotsus because They don't have anybody now. Mamadou Ducore is out of eligibility. The Drame twins are gone. They're going to need some bigs and they're going to need some size as well. So for me, Temple and LaSalle are the schools he's going to fit at the best. And I think LaSalle's a good spot for him. Not too far from PW. I've been to a couple games. I actually saw him play in high school, I think, as a sophomore. And it's just like, it's hard to wrap your mind around when you see a guy that's 7'4", and you know he's like still got a couple more years to grow into his body in high school. Like it's mind blowing to see that. The guy's huge. I think they actually played Neshaminy and they actually played against Chris Arcidiacono. So that was pretty cool to see them going up. But I mean, Neshaminy didn't have anybody to go against him. Like all he had to do was stick his hands up and grab offensive rebounds. So, and also, yeah, I can confirm he did take a visit to LaSalle. And you know who the source is, Kyle? That source is me because I was walking to literature class one day at LaSalle and I walked past him and Donnie Carr and Ash Howard were with him taking him around campus.
How
So
about
I
that?
am your source. Yeah, I am your source for that. You can't dispute that because there's no way you can look at a 7'4" guy and you can mistake him for somebody else. And I've seen him play before, so I know who he was. And then also, yeah, we'll cite our sources here. Shout out to at LaSalle B-Ball 1. I mentioned in a tweet LaSalle was part of his last 6. He then clarified for me that he was also part of his last 3 when he was choosing between Rhode Island and Florida State. And then shout out to Tom Gola 2.0, who also pointed out that yes, it was Donnie Carr that went on the visit with him, but also remember, like, yeah, Ashley Howard's not there anymore. Donnie Carr still is, and that's what's huge about the transfer portal now. These assistant coaches, when you're recruiting a kid, you know, you never want to break ties or rub somebody the wrong way, even if you don't commit to their school. Because now in the age of the transfer portal, what happens if that kid that you recruited 1, 2, 3 years down the line becomes available? You still want to maintain that relationship. And this is a perfect example of something that, you know, Donnie Carr's still in the staff. He recruited Naeem McLeod, and he could potentially fill a huge need for them and give LaSalle somebody not only the size that they need behind Rokas-Yotus and to play with them, but an experienced guy down low and in the post as well. So I think he's going to end up choosing LaSalle. If I had to pick from these 4, I think he'd actually choose LaSalle. And I think he would go to play with the Explorers. He's been there before. Obviously knows Donnie Carr. And like I said, he would fill a need for them with some much needed depth behind or playing with Rokas-Yosus. I think he showed enough that maybe warrant the starting spot. But if you bring in a dude who's 7'4" and can dominate a game strictly with his height, it's gonna be hard to keep off the 4th. I think I've done pretty well with the predictions. I said TJ Bamba, said Hakim Hart to Villanova. I was just saying to a friend the other day, I thought Avery Anderson III was going to go to TCU from Oklahoma State. That ended up happening. So I think I've got a pretty solid track record with this. So I'll put my name on this. I'll attach it as well. And I'll say Naeem McLeod to LaSalle if he chooses from one of these 4 city schools.
Oh, I'm saying you need a crystal ball too. I've been saying it. I've been saying it. I mean, wow. Yeah, I could definitely see that being the most likely scenario just because of his relationship with Donnie Carr. Obviously, he took a visit there when he was a rising senior freshman in college, whatever you want to call it, when he was making his decision. And he was in his top 3 then too. So I could definitely see LaSalle being the one. I think if he wanted to go for PT, he'd probably go to Temple because I think he would start there over Emmanuel Pomo. But I do think LaSalle's going to be where he ends up going just because it's close to home. It's got the rapport there, obviously, with Donnie Carr. So I could definitely see him going to LaSalle. And I think that's what will happen too. But I'm not going to take the credit for it. You're the crystal ball. I will agree with you, though. Absolutely. All right. Well, like you said, we're kind of the dog days here. We're getting there. So that's all we have for this episode. Not a ton to go over, especially with us having talked about Hakim Hart a lot the last couple episodes. But anything you want to add here before we sign off?
No, nothing college related, I guess. I'll just say, you know, I see the Knicks fans celebrating like they just won like back championships in the streets just they went 2-0 at home in the playoffs. But you know, when you're the New York Knicks, you don't win a lot in the playoffs. Last couple of years, you can just cut playoffs off and just say they haven't won a lot. This is what you do. Sixers, injury situation, regardless. Ho hum, sweep, sweep, sweep. We're sitting at home waiting for the Celtics and Hawks series to finish. Go Sixers. Praying that Embiid can just be like 70% going into the next series, whoever they play, which but yeah, the Sixers are at home right now. Knicks are still playing, still celebrating like they won. I'll throw that out there. But I'm happy for you that there's a couple big five guys and a Duke guy there helping you. Then help carry the Knicks to where they are now.
Thank you. But also, yeah, I mean, listen, not hasn't been a lot of winning in my lifetime. I've been alive 24 years now. It has not been a lot. There's uh the 2012-13 teams, or I guess it was 11-12. That the Carmelo Anthony and Mario Stoudemire era. There was a few playoff appearances. There was the one 2021. That's really been it until this year. And we're up 3-1. It's pretty good. Job's not finished, believe me. Job's not finished. Got more to do. Going back to Cleveland. But listen, I think we can definitely win the series, and close this out, and hopefully, I don't know who we would play next if we do win, because the Heat are up 2-1 on the Bucks. Be very, very interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, hopefully they close it out. Definitely have two Villanova guys helping out a lot. Unfortunately, well, I don't want to say unfortunately. I'm a big RJ Barrett fan, but he's a Duke guy, unfortunately. But great game today. He's finally attacking the rim more. He's not settling for the jump shots, which is definitely a strong suit of driving. Yeah. Yeah, and shout out to Tibbs for actually having the guts to bench Julius Randle when he did not look healthy and good in this game. So good for him. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got too. NBA playoffs are actually heating up, which is exciting because I don't really like watching the regular season a ton, as we've discussed on this podcast before, I'm pretty sure too. Um, yeah, that's all I got. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, even in the dog days, and we're gonna be in the dog days for a little bit here, but we got content. Don't you worry. And you can find that, like and subscribe on YouTube. You can definitely find it on social media at Big Five Pod, Twitter and Instagram, especially our Twitter, where we're going to be tweeting a lot of updates on recruits and transfers and whatnot. And Apple Podcasts and Spotify for all audio only versions. Definitely make sure you check out those. And that's all we got. We'll see you toward the end of this week.